In this episode, we explore how AI is transforming customer experience and what that means for leadership and management. Let's accelerate your business. Welcome to the AI Accelerated for Business show, where you get the latest strategies, tactics, and information about artificial intelligence to benefit your business. My name is Carl A, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff Bradshaw. And in this episode, we're talking about AI's impact on leadership and management, specifically around customer experience. This is part 2 of our 2-part series on AI's impact on leadership and management. And for today's episode, we have a special guest. His name is Allan Klassen. Allan, you know what? I think it'd be awesome if you could just let us know give us a little bit about your background, where you're coming from, and where where your company is growing today.
Sure, Carl. Thanks for having me, Jeff and Carl. Great to be here. Yeah, I had an amazing ride here. So 35 years in the home building and development business as both a business owner. Our company, LB Homes, got bought in 2015 by Brookfield Residential, moved over and eventually stayed with them for a long time. They bought our company because of our focus on our customer and our culture. They asked me to create a position called Chief Experience Officer for all of Brookfield. And Brookfield is the largest real estate company in North America. So I went over there for, I guess I was about there 8 years before I retired at the end of July of last year and had a great run, as I said. And rather than retiring and just golfing, because I moved down to Phoenix 4 years ago, I really wanted to do something where I could really give back. And I created a company called Clarity Quest that is Clarity Quest Leadership that's focused on helping CEOs, business leaders, and organizations reach their business and personal goals in a meaningful way. So I'm coaching organizations. I'm doing a lot of keynote speaking around customer experience, around leadership authenticity, around intentional living. And I'm doing a lot of one-to-one coaching with young leaders that are growing and trying to really get that next level of their journey. So having a lot of fun, dabbling in things that I never thought that I would dabble in before. And I feel like a new kid at 64 years old. And my best day is yet to come.
Perfect. Allan, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time. And so you've obviously got extensive knowledge of that whole customer experience, customer journey. You've been doing it for years. Here we're talking about AI. And we're just wondering from your experience with customer engagement, how do you think new technologies like AI might change how companies engage with customers in the next few years?
Well, I think one of the things everybody needs to realize is that the customers, if we're not embracing AI and understanding who our customer is, trust me, the vast majority of our customers are going to understand who we are. And I remember doing this research on technology. This would have been, Carl, you may have been around. This would have been about 6-7 years ago. Trying to understand how customers wanted to interact on technology digitally on websites. And one of the compelling things that came back to us was that the customer needed us to trust them before they would trust us. And trust is the foundation of any customer relationship. Where I'm going with this is that these customers are going to be doing their due diligence using AI on not only what they want and what they need, but on every organization that they are going to be dealing with. Not everybody, but I would suggest to you that the vast majority that really grasp the power that is out there and the information that's out there, it's being used by the customer, and the customer is going to be using it throughout their entire journey, of the relationship with you. So I think that's part of it. And then the other part of it is in terms of how it's going to impact the customer experience is those companies that embrace it and understand that. And again, I've always said when it comes to technology, and this is where a lot of organizations really screw it up. Technology should not drive the experience. The experience needs to drive the technology. So what I mean by that is that I'm a believer when it comes to customer experience that it does not replace the human being. It enhances the experience of the customer so the human being can really do what they're paid to do, which is really wrap their arms around the customer in an empathetic and meaningful way and really create value for the customer. And that's where I feel AI in all different formats can really allow organizations to, and they will become more efficient and they will be able to drive bottom line improvements, but they'll also be able to drive their customer relationships, which will create more of an ROI on their investment for that customer.
I actually, based on what you said, I want to give you this kind of scenario because, so I was listening to a quick clip. It featured Simon Sinek, and he was talking about how it's starting to become a privilege to actually talk to people because a lot of companies are actually implementing AI chatbots that, you go through a bot, ask your questions, but because he's I guess a VIP member and he takes a lot of flights with American Airlines or Southwest, I can't remember which airlines, he has a number that they provide him that when he calls that number, it's not an AI or it's an actual real person. Do you think, based on what you talked about of having companies, actually, a real person wrap around the customer, do you think there's a little bit of a danger where companies are going to be over leveraging AI because they can get away with, like a chatbot being able to answer questions or whatever that is, that they kind of lose sight, like you were mentioning, that, people sometimes just want to talk to another person?
The short answer is yes, it's happening. And I was taught in school, there's 3 different strategies, and you have to pick one of these core areas to be the best in the world at. You need to be unbelievable at operational efficiency. You can pick to be customer-centric, or you can be a product leader. And organizations that perhaps want to really just focus on being lean and mean and operational efficient, and they are in the relationship business, which is kind of an oxymoron, but they're gonna probably use that chatbot and ride that chatbot to the end. They're not going to have long-term advocacy. They're not going to have, they may have a little bit of loyalty because the customer might get some spiffs and stuff like that, but they're not going to have long-term advocacy where people are going out and raving about that experience with the organization. The organizations that are truly customer-centric, that are very customer focused, get that empathy and trust is absolutely critical. And they're going to embrace and use, in my opinion, and my recommendation, they're going to use AI in a more meaningful way, still to create efficiencies, because you have to always be creating efficiencies when you're implementing some of these things. But they will also be looking at where are we slipping in terms of that human interaction? Where are we missing that opportunity to be able to connect in a more meaningful way with a customer? So does that answer your question, Carl?
Oh, definitely does. I do have a follow-up, but Jeff.
No, I was just, and what I was going to say though is that actually, for me, the human connection is important, but what's more important to me as a customer is making the journey easy and accessible for me. So I don't really, I'm okay if I talk to a person or an AI bot as long as I'm getting my needs met. Like if I'm not put on hold for an hour, if I'm getting the answers, so I think that's interesting with AI is as AI gets better, it might not have to be a human to be able to provide.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Jeff. And I think there's different purposes that you need to be thinking about. I mean, there's really four key areas in delivering customer experience based on research. There's caring, to care about your customer. There's quality, so that means a quality product and experience. And then the other two that are really have really elevated in their game since the Amazons of the world and the Ubers of the world that have come into play are authenticity and ease. Authenticity is number one. So you have to be fully transparent, and you can do that through a chatbot to some extent. You can do it. I'm sure you can do it to the fullest extent in some industries. And then ease is critical. This is where these businesses are just passing by the more traditional organizations that were, weren't using technology in a meaningful way. So to your point, I think there's a spot for it. It just depends again on where you want to meet your customer. But to your point, that the ability to be able to get what you need the way you want it, meet the customer where they are. You always want to meet the customer where they are. Not everybody wants to have a hug. I just want my answers. So that's a very good point.
So a second part of my question is when we talked about, I think there's a difference between like large enterprises and then medium, smaller businesses where on the other side, do you think that AI levels the playing field for medium or smaller businesses in terms of customer experience? Because now they have the capability to either answer more questions, get back to customers. We've talked to several businesses. They're like, I don't have enough time to, I don't have the resources to have a system that automatic responds to our customers' questions. We get tons of email a day that I just don't have time to get to because of other work. Does that actually level that playing field if SMEs are able to use it?
I had a conversation yesterday with a remodeler, renovator that they got 23 people, which is mostly people in the field, versus another organization that is 5 times their size. Their ability to be able to utilize AI in the design process and in the takeoff process, they've implemented AI, and these two companies are partners because this company does a certain scope of business and this company focuses on bigger projects, but they work together. This company is smaller. They're about a $50 million a year business, maybe a little bit higher. This is a company that's about 300 million. The smaller company is utilizing AI for digital takeoffs and leverage and teaching that to the larger company because they're seeing the efficiencies and the benefits that the smaller remodeler, 50 million is not small, but you know what I'm saying, is how they're leveraging it and how they're utilizing it to be able to get to us. Their ability, if they wanted to scale, and this is where I think AI really comes into play, is when you're thinking about scaling your business, that technology, from the limited knowledge that I have, is going to be a game changer in helping organizations that might not have all of the experience or the size or the capital to really escalate their game.
Another one, and Carl, this we talked a little bit about the Y Combinator full stack business, but I'm wondering from a customer experience standpoint, because in the AI space, they're talking about the $1 billion one person run company, which is really great if you're the one person that owns the company, but not so great for the thousands of people that would have been employed by a traditional $1 billion company. Do you think that in the future, people might lean towards companies that still are human focused and are employing people? And just from a feel good standpoint, because it might be, but it's also interesting because I know even here, they have all these shop local campaigns in the past, and everybody's like, yes, shop local, support local, while they're hitting the order button on their Amazon order. So I'm just wondering, do you think that'll play into it in the future? Will people want to lean towards human?
I can't speak for everybody because we're all kind of cut differently, right? I think it really does come down to the individual. I think it's really what the customer, and this is where organizations need to figure out what sandbox they're playing in. They have to be really clear on what their strategy is, what their value prop is, and most importantly, what are the attributes and the things that their customers need, their core customer. And so, for me personally, I need a high touch. I just bought a vehicle, a Genesis vehicle. I was a BMW and Mercedes guy forever. I bought a Genesis vehicle, in a shopping center, which I never would have thought, but I still had that really great experience and really great kind of hands-on. It was just a very seamless process, and they're very, very technical savvy group there. Much smaller organization than that. Well, they're part of the Hyundai group, I guess, so not that small, but you know what I'm saying. So I think it really depends on who your customer is and what their needs are.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, data and privacy. Obviously, people are concerned about what AI will do with their data and privacy. So, what, in your opinion, what should leaders think when using customer data? Right, they probably gathered responsibly and use it with AI in a customer experience manner? That's
a question that I don't know that I've got the right answer for. I have not thought about that question, to be quite frank with you. But as you're talking about it, I'm going, I better lean into that because there is a lot of risks there. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say, but I think that kind of goes back to your one comment about trust.
Yeah.
You've got to build that trust with customers, because if there's any kind of breakdown of trust that they think you're taking advantage, because I even think now people find people are hesitant to put their email in because they don't want to get blasted by a bunch of spam. And if you think that you've got an AI tool that's going to, do anything with that personal information, you could break down that trust pretty quick.
Well, that's very true, and I mean, I'm just thinking about, again, just your own experience. You click on one thing on just Instagram, And like I did this yesterday, and before I know it, there's 5 other manufacturers of the same kind of product that are all over me like a hobo on a bologna sandwich, and it's like, so to your Carl, I think that's a really good point, and I don't have a clear cut answer, but it's really based on that customer being able to trust them, and it's on the business to create that kind of environment that they can be trusted. I don't know what that framework looks like.
I think it just that question stems because the availability of tools right now to create anything you want, right?
Yeah.
Video, audio, whatever. And because of customer experience, you're like, oh, why don't we? Because, now we have the capability to, doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. But that companies will start taking shortcuts because you're like, well, if AI can make the call instead of me having to make the call because I'm doing something else, why don't we do it? If AI can create this content or a bunch of emails for me, why can't it do it? Like, those are the start things. But then if you look at it from the customer's point of view, you're like, wait, I've got a whole bunch of AI calls. I've got a whole bunch. When I go to your website or when I talk to you, it's all AI. Like, where is the real person? And now I'm like, can I really trust your company?
Well, and I think again, this is the linchpin in how to use this kind of technology is, if you are truly customer obsessed and customer centric, and you want to drive advocacy, you need to be able to understand who your customer is, and you need to be able to meet them where they are, and you need to be able to have empathy for the experience that they're going through, whether it's B2B, B2C, it doesn't really matter. And if you're just cutting corners to, maybe, again, don't get me wrong, I know efficiency is a big reason why AI is so powerful, but if you don't keep the human element in a customer-centric business, you won't be customer-centric for very long.
That's an interesting point, Allan. And I don't know if I shared with you the Visa video, but Carl, that's another one we might want to include in here. But Visa on May 1st came out with, and MasterCard did as well, with AI-centric Visa cards. And they're talking potentially within September or October, they'll be releasing these Visa cards where you can set up your Visa agent to go out and make purchases on your behalf based on certain criteria. So you can pick a budget, you can pick which vendors you want them to go to, and you'll just hit click. And he used the example, the CEO of Visa, to say concert tickets or a Mother's Day gift. And now Visa, your Visa-enabled AI card, will go out and make this purchase. So that's a whole other level of customer experience, because how do you set your business up to now not necessarily satisfy a human, but to be able to meet the needs of an AI-enabled Visa card that's going to be making the purchase on a person's behalf? So that's a whole other realm that I guarantee no executive has dealt
thinking
with.
About. that I'm not sure that I would assign buying a gift for my wife to anybody but me.
Don't say never.
That's a very good point. That's very cool.
And I think that's one of the things that, and again, that's something that we'll include the video, I think, here, Carl. But I mean, I think that's a really interesting point that's coming very quickly for businesses. And now you're not necessarily talking to a human, but you might be, how do you provide customer experience for an AI agent who's working on a person's behalf? That's just, who knows?
Yeah, we can have the agent conversation. We can go down that rabbit hole. I guess, like, the final question for you, Allan, would be like, what's one advice you'd give in terms of a customer experience in AI to any of your clients or to any businesses thinking about leveraging AI specifically for customer experience?
Well, number one, start really small. Highlight something that is maybe addressing a certain pain point that you're aware of, that's pretty consistent, that you can learn from, and that you can get the flywheel moving around AI. Like maybe it's around your responsiveness to your customer care department or something like that. Or I think it's really important to start small. Maybe it's something internal as well. I mean, you can use AI to analyze data, around customer experience. So if you think about third-party surveys and looking for trends, that might be again, thinking about that flywheel, thinking about getting that momentum going, using some things that maybe are not as risky as you need them to be to demonstrate the value. That's where I would kind of lean in. It also, I think from a front end perspective, this is where I'm using it a lot right now, is understanding who your customer pool could be. You can prompt, in my limited world, prompting AI to provide you with a really great look at your sandbox on who your core customers could be, and whether, that's a profile of demographic and psychographics and all that kind of good stuff. And you relate that to the kinds of products that they're looking for. That's another way for you to be able to utilize AI in a safe environment to give you confidence, to create some expertise, and then start to build some momentum from there. Testing processes, is our process customer centric? Because most of our, I think about the industry that we were in before, and every industry, most industries build their processes from the inside out. When you think about customer experience journeys, I've always coached to think about the customer journey from the outside in. So when you think about the process map that you might have in your business, plop that into an AI tool and get it to start to talk to you about from the customer's lens, how are they feeling at these certain points in time of the customer journey. And again, that kind of in-depth knowledge is just going to make you that much more powerful to be able to address some of those needs and wants and goals that your customer has.
Learn more about AI in business by watching these videos here. Enjoyed today's episode? Want to learn how AI can impact your business? Then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.